Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wild Tribe podcast, where we connect with wildlife photographers, expedition leaders, and members of the wildlife ecosystem from all around the world. I'm Megha Sharma, and joining us today is an award winning photographer and biologist, Julius Kramer. Hey, Julius.
Hello, nice to meet you here.
Lovely to meet you. How's it going?
Yeah, all good on my end, and I hope all good with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have you here. So let's get started. Let's start. I would love to know more about you and the origins of the wild, I guess, as we like to call it. Tell us about your relationship with the wild, how it started, and what makes you so passionate about photography.
So actually, it really started when I was a small child, around like 5, 6 years old, and my father had one of those really old Minolta SLR cameras at that time, of course. And we had a bird feeder in the garden, and he had like a really old tripod, and he placed the camera there, and I had like a shutter release, like a cable release, to trigger the camera every time a bird was coming to the bird feeder. And you can imagine I took the best photos ever. None of them was sharp. The birds were out of frame and all of this. But this is actually where my photography journey started very early. Um, and I was always supported by my parents. And at some point, they said, "Oh, wouldn't it make sense for you to go to video because then you can reuse the film? Because at that time you had to, bring the film for developing and get like the pictures back, and it was quite expensive. And having like a videotape that you can reuse all the time was just better. So I moved over to video, and I have tons of videos in really bad quality of deer, of foxes, of hares over here in Germany. And then after that, I found out that okay, maybe video isn't the right thing for me because it requires quite some knowledge on how to tell a story, right? And it's not always easy if you don't focus fully to that story to get all the pictures of it. And I went back to getting my first DSLR camera, which was a Nikon D70 with 6 megapixels. And I started like doing serious wildlife photography when I was like 15, 16 years old. And since then, my journey started like being a wildlife photographer all over the world. I've been to many countries. I spend a lot of time here in Europe, but also abroad in Africa, in the Caribbean, in US, and I really love telling stories with my pictures now, and that's basically what I do.
That's fantastic. I wanted to say because I we will get into this a bit later, but you are obviously you've received a couple of awards for your photography. Would you say you're self-taught, or have you taken any courses or anything that's really helped you enhance your techniques with photography?
I'm 100% self-taught. So when I started, I had a lot of books about wildlife photography. There was one very famous German photographer, Fritz Pölking, who was one of the main photographers in Germany, wildlife photographers, and he had some books explaining which lenses to use, what's the best approach. And I had those books with me everywhere. I took them to my grandparents, I took them on vacation, I took them everywhere, and I always inhaled them almost. And then using this, I took a lot of experience by just doing it on my own. And I think the first thing I learned is that being doing some kind of self-criticism is really important when starting photography, but also exposing your images to others, letting them comment. So I was very active in photography forums, showing my pictures, getting feedback from others, trying to really enhance my work. And that's how I did it. And I'm still doing it like this because it's always very interesting to show pictures to someone who has no idea who you are, what you're doing. And then when people telling you, "Oh, well, I like the image, but if you do like this, have you tried?" It's always really good to question if what you're doing is the right direction, or if I should move, or yeah, just change things.
I mean, that's really good. I mean, at the end of the day, you received an award for it, so you know you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm not doing photography for the awards, right? It's my work for conservation mainly. So it was quite interesting because in the German photography community, We have like a regional meeting for wildlife photographers here in Munich. And I went there, and it was last year actually when I went there, first time ever for me being there. And then I said, okay, guys, how about if I show you some pictures of my lynx? And they were like, lynx? Where are you going? Is there an enclosure where you have lynx? And they thought really it's like zoo pictures. And I showed up with my pictures, and that's where I spent most of the time with of wild lynx that I do using camera traps. And they were really like, oh, how did it happen that we didn't know about your work? And I was like, well, I'm not doing the work for wildlife photographers, I'm doing it for conservation. So all my pictures are used by WWF, they're used by NABU, German organizations for wildlife conservation. And yeah, and they are being used there and spread to the public. And that's my intention, to publish the pictures where they are needed, not to just show that I'm a really good photographer and showing all the other photographers that I can do really good pictures. That's not my thing to do it like this.
That's really good. That's really good, and I respect that a lot. So speaking of storytelling and your work with WWF and NABU, how do you align storytelling with conservation impact?
First of all, when you tell a story, you need to find the story, right? It's not always easy, because it's way easier to just go outside, take a photo of a beautiful bird, and then you have the good photo, right? For telling a story, you need to consider a bit more things. First of all, you need to find the story, which means there's most of the time you have a conflict somewhere that you need to approach, and that conflict can be resolved using your photo story. And it's a very journalistic approach that I take. So, for example, for my link story, we have a lot of poaching of lynx here in Germany, which is like, people always think about Africa when we speak about poaching, but no, it's happening just in front of our door here in our garden, basically, and people don't know it. So that's like the conflict that I have to tell. Guys, have a look there. Those people, those animals get killed just because they eat deer. Is that like okay for you? And then telling this and finding this story, and then trying to really get as many pictures of it, like from a dead lynx that was killed, to beautiful pictures of lynx in the environment, to people working on the conservation story, like people approaching, I don't know, foresters approaching children, working with them to give them the knowledge about what how special this animal is. Because I really think you can only do conservation on something that you really respect and that you really love, and where you know that it exists. And that's like where pictures just help, right? And that's like an example on how to draft a story, but you can do it with like smaller things, and of course bigger things as well.
So how would you okay, I've got two questions for you actually. One of them is, I'm very curious now, and mind my ignorance, but are lynx, or obviously wild animals, are they dangerous to humans?
No, they are not at all. They're like the size of a German Shepherd, right? So they are like knee height. They're not really dangerous. Uh, they are very not shy. They're like cautious, I would say. So they will not expose themselves. They are like typical cats, right? They will be around. They will be watching you, but they would not approach you and try to fight you unless you come really close. Or but even then, they would rather move back than like going forward. So it's not a tiger, right?
Yeah.
It's way smaller, and they're not dangerous at all.
And so then why are they being poached?
They are being poached because in Germany the system for hunters is very interesting, because actually the landowner has the right to hunt. So if you own a decent size of land, which is like, I don't know, 80 hectares or something, you can use that for hunting on your own. And what these guys think is like every wildlife living in here is their own animal. So every deer living on that, cell of land is their own. And there is not much deer there because the environment is not really good for deer. It's very rocky, it's very dry, there's not much, food for the deer. And then obviously a lynx is coming in and hunting deer as well. And of course, if you get like a lynx family hunting in that area of that hunter, it has a big impact on the deer population because it will just go down because a lynx mother will kill a deer once a week. And that means like if they stay there for 10 weeks, you get like 10 deers killed by the lynx and eaten by the lynx. And this 10 deer, they believe, is something that they cannot hunt anymore. And then this is the conflict, the hunters. And then what's happening is like, as the lynx is not really shy, but only cautious, it's very easy to spot for the hunter because they are hiding there, sitting there waiting for the deer. And then the lynx shows up. And what's happening is very often is that the lynx gets killed just by the hunter. That's, we don't really know what's happening, to be honest, because we never saw a hunter doing this. So this is like really hard to blame all the hunters for it. But it's very obvious that there's something wrong. They cannot just, those lynx would not just move anywhere else, right? They would not start wandering around and move somewhere else because then you would know that they live somewhere else. So there must be something happening in that area, at least with some areas, with some hunters, that these animals just disappear suddenly. Yeah, that's the
Right.
problem over here.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. You don't realize all this goes on in other parts of the world. You're so focused on your own country. Oh, that's very interesting. So then, how would you photograph these links? And that's going to take me into my next question about your specialty in camera trapping.
So when I started, I was like, okay, it would be really nice to get a picture of a wild lynx. And then I was just checking out with with the local biologist working with the lynx, and they said, well, we have like 15 to 20 adult lynxes over here in the area, which is really huge. You can try, sit down, but it will take you 6 weeks sitting there until you get a lynx on a camera, on like just from a hide or something. I say, well, that's not really realistic from me because I'm working as well, and it's not just like going there every day and waiting for a lynx to maybe show up. So I took the approach to check how I can build DSLR cameras in boxes to place them out in the wild and see if the lynx itself can trigger the camera when it's passing by. So that's camera trapping. All these small, tiny cameras that scientists use to see which wildlife is around, um, and that's working all over the world pretty well. But the next step is, of course, like improving the image quality because those small camera traps, those wildlife hunting cameras, they are really bad quality. And what I wanted to have is like proper SLR, DSLR quality with a lot of megapixels and sharpness and so on. So I built my own boxes where I place the cameras in, where I have flashes mounted, where I have a sensor like a PIR sensor or a light barrier, depending on the situation. And I right now have like, I think 10 cameras or something out there waiting for some animal to pass by. And then, of course, you need a lot of knowledge about the animal itself because you cannot just place a camera somewhere in the forest and see if an animal will pass by. Most of the time, nothing will happen, right? You would just wait, and there's no animal at all. And then it's also like step back and not think as a photographer because you need to think as an animal. When I was a lynx, where would I go, right? Is it like on the right or on the left? And it happened very often to me that I was like framing a picture where I thought, oh, that would be really nice if the lynx passes by here. He would not because it's not the way he would take like by nature, right?
Right.
And that's what I do right now a lot is camera trapping with lynx, but also with other animals over here or somewhere else on travels. I also take camera traps to place them to see what is around, and it's a very unique way of taking photos, I think.
Speaking of camera trapping, you're doing a trip with Gaia Tales coming up very soon. I think start beginning of 2026. So I believe you've got two different itineraries coming along, and you are bringing camera trapping for these trips. So are you going to be mainly doing camera trapping, or are you going to be bringing some other gear with you as well?
No, the good thing about camera trapping is like you set them up and then you forget them. So I will bring some camera traps with me. We can set them together. I can show the guests how, to set the camera traps, or if someone has his own camera trap, he can bring them as well, of course. And then we would place them and then we leave them because usually it takes some time until the animals accept the camera trap and until they move and pass by the camera. And then we can check during daytime, lunchtime when the light is really bad for normal photography, you can check the camera traps. And then during the good light, we do the sessions on the safari to really see the animals, like face to face. and this is a really good combination because it shows you two worlds, like from normal safari approach where you just take photos with your long telelens and try to guess the best face-to-face picture, but on the other side with the camera trap see what else is around, because there might be some smaller critters that you can just get on a camera trap, but also maybe some of the bigger species like leopards or bears, to see if they pass by, and then get a really different picture than what you can get from a normal telephoto lens.
Right, because would you say the animals are unaware of the camera traps? They're a bit more themselves versus cautious or on the lookout if there are, people in jeeps around?
That's absolutely true, because it's just a small tiny black box that's standing there. Most of the animals are curious. So monkeys, for example, they would start immediately try to see if they can take it away, or if you can open it, if there's food inside. Cats like to mark them. So that's happened very often, that they just mark it. It's not really nice. I can imagine with a tiger, for example, that it's a really hard smell if they mark it. Um, and others just pass by. Of course, the noise of the shutter would like scare some animals sometimes, but it really depends on the species. Shyer animals like deer, they would be very careful approaching it, but others like predators, they're usually just okay with it, and they're curious, they want to see what it is. And and also you get a picture of the animal in the environment, like capturing the full nature around the animal. And
Yeah.
I think this is a really nice way, fitting back to the storytelling part. You don't only want like picture of the animal with like a blurry background, you want it with the full environment around.
Okay, interesting. And then, so now you said you also have these flashes mounted on your camera traps. I'm very curious about your camera trapping. It's the first time I'm learning about it. So you have these flashes. So obviously that's for nighttime photography. Is that I mean, so the sensors obviously, notify the flash when an animal maybe approaches and takes a picture. But would you also say, I mean, do you also have something, for example, like night vision?
I also have
Okay.
a infrared camera.
Okay.
You can build an infrared camera based on a DSLR by just removing one of the filters and adding an infrared filter on the sensor.
Okay.
And I got one like this. And then, of course, you need to add infrared light. And then it's like completely invisible. But of course, you only get black and white pictures out of it. But
Right.
I also have that. I rarely use it because I actually like the color pictures more. But there are some situations, especially if you were close to humans, where infrared is better because otherwise people get attracted by that. I was working close to a road, for example, and I wanted to capture animal passing the road, and then you cannot just put flashlights because a driver by night would just like get flash. It's just dangerous for him. So for these scenarios, I have infrared as well. Yeah.
Okay, understood. So I mean, we spoke a little bit about the human lynx and deer conflict taking place in Germany and many of the backyards. In fact, one of your trips, which is I believe in Beta that you're coming to, which is located in Rajasthan, it's your main species of focus there is the leopard, and Beta is known for zero human animal conflict as an area. So do you think this has any relation with what you're working on for the Links project in Germany?
Just it's just super amazing to hear that there is a place on the world where humans and leopards or big cats can live together without being in conflict, and I'd like to know why. What is the difference to those people over there to our people here, to really understand how we can learn from them? I mean, these are shepherds, right? They make a living out of their cattle or sheep or whatever they have. And if you get leopards killing those all the time, and they do kill them, right? Um, you must be feeling really bad. But how do they live with it? How do they do it? And that's actually, I'm really curious about that story. And I'd also like to tell that story to people over here, to show them, look, in India, where they are not like rich people, right? They are shepherds. They are not afraid of the leopard. How can you be afraid of a lynx hunting a deer here if people over there really have a you know existential issue with the leopard by nature? and how does it work? And this story is really interesting to tell.
Now that is, I'm waiting for you to do it so I can know more about it too, because that'll be really, really cool. So, I mean, other than, of course, the animal human conflict, I think beta is just a very interesting space. And a lot of people, it's, while it's not a protected area or a national park, and you'd be traveling through the wilderness amongst the villages there. I mean, thus your itinerary leopards and shepherds. But one thing that's quite interesting is that the leopards over there, their primary diet is livestock. And one of the interesting facts is, I believe the government there also helps kind of, if you're as a shepherd, if your livestock does get eaten by leopards, I think they do provide some sort of a compensation. But I guess that also plays a big role in the involvement of the local government there. But a very interesting fact about beta, especially, is of course, the landscape is primarily, or it is completely granite boulders and arid shrub forests. And there's one particular person who's going to be our host in beta. His name is Shatrunjay Singh. He's played an extremely important role in protecting these habitats, especially, I mean, in Beira itself, by stopping 100 granite landmines from extracting from that area. And that's not an easy feat. I'm sure it's not an easy feat anywhere else, but I think it's, people like him, because they've protected such areas, that we can go and do such research and learn more about how um, animals and humans essentially can live in one area in harmony.
This is really kind of unique, right? People engaging so much with their environment that they invest much more that they actually need, right? Is super exciting, and I really love to meet those people to see how they think. I mean, because it's a lot of effort, as you say, to find all those landmines, to remove them, and it's really hard. But obviously, he's investing a lot of effort there because he thinks not like it's good for his business, but he really believes that this makes the world better. And
Yeah.
people like this is just amazing.
And I think that's the fun part about, I mean, at least for me personally, as I'm working with Gaia Tales, I'm learning about how passionate, genuinely passionate people are. I mean, a lot of the wildlife photographers I tend to meet now, their main, or one of their biggest, of course, main purpose with wildlife photography is to build awareness. And I think, I mean, similarly to what you are doing, is conveying these stories through photography and imagery. And I think that is so, so, so important. And it's beautiful that people are willing to protect the planet while others are still trying to destroy. But there are people out there who are willing to take care of it, and it's our home at the end of the day, as well as it's their home first, I believe, before it's ours.
Being on the same world here, right? So we are
Exactly.
sharing this planet. So I think we should be really help, yeah, like really exchange more uh, without borders, right? We're so much focusing on our own countries, on our own areas. As you said before, we don't know what's going on in other areas of the world in this, particular case. And telling this story using pictures, because pictures, you don't need to listen, you don't need to understand. You just see the picture, you see the story, the pictures, or number of pictures, and you understand what's going on without, somebody telling you what's going on. And I think that's the magic of photography. So you can transport all the information without actually writing something in a specific language, and that's why I really love that work.
Absolutely. And you can transport the viewer of the image to that exact location and show them how beautiful this planet really is.
I mean, that's even better if you get a chance like we do now to get people really seeing and experience that is amazing, because you get so much more out of it than just pictures. You get like full experience, like, and nobody will take that away from you anymore. You can just keep that in your heart, and you will always remember like a trip with us, right? Because you get really close, and it's not just like sitting a jeep and driving somewhere and waiting for the leopard to open the eye. No, it's like we do more. We want to like really show you how people live there. We want to show you conservation efforts, um, like that, and to really give you more information about the nature where you are. And it's not just about getting a beautiful leopard picture, but also like learning how life is somewhere else on the planet, and that's cool, I think.
That's fantastic. No, I'm excited. I'm really excited, and I'm excited for your trips. I just have one last question for you, actually, because you emphasize patience and respect in your work. I want to talk a little bit about the ethics of wildlife photography.
There's, wildlife photography is becoming more and more popular because it seems to be very easy to really get amazing wildlife pictures. And in some places it is, right? And people forget that we are like guests in the environment, that we are guests with, like, we are in the living room of the animal when we take a photo. And you didn't want someone to just walk in your living room and just behave as, really bad. So, and the animal is the same, right? You want to be really cautious and rather step back than step forth to really make sure you don't disturb the animal, because I think this is key. Otherwise, animals will change their behavior and nobody can take photos of them. So I saw photographers throwing little stones to animals to make them move because they didn't want to wait. And that's something where I really get angry, because those animals would, have in their mind that this place is not a good place to be because I get thrown by stones here. So they will move and nobody can take a photo of it. So my personal opinion here is like, before you really try hard to get a picture and it's just not possible today, go back, try again tomorrow. It's another day tomorrow. There's another chance tomorrow. It's way better for everyone to do it like this than just pushing hard to get that single shot. And you know that there are many people like, uh, I saw really weird pictures of leopard geckos like standing on their hind legs. And if you look closely, you see like they have a strip around their leg holding them up. People are doing this to get a funny picture of a gecko. And I'm like, guys, that's not, it's first not wildlife, because no gecko of the world would do that. And second, it's just harming the animal, and don't do that. And the other thing here to say is like, when we take a photo and show it to people, people trust that it's like real, right? So that means if you manipulate the nature somehow, this can be feeding, this can be like manipulating by, throwing stones, it can be basically anything. Move the nest of the bird like 2 meters lower to get a picture of the. People do this, and that's not okay, because then it's not true. It's not like authentic anymore, and people would like lose trust in wildlife photography if you do that. And of course, you're always, as a human being in the nature, you would always influence the animal because the animal sees you and you would kind of interact with you. That's normal. Even if animals like look like they don't care about you, they will see you and they will of course change their behavior based on you. Just like you have a tiger coming the road, just passing to you, and the jeep is in the middle, it cannot walk straight, it will like walk around, so you influence the animal. This is okay. But it's really hard to find that line where this is okay and this is not okay. And I think everyone for his own needs to find his own opinion on that. I, for my own, can just say rather go back than forth to really make sure you don't harm any wildlife.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it comes down to being not harming a definitely, and of course respecting them. They're also creatures and they're living creatures. We mustn't. It's not a circus out there. So
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, but man, it's shocking some of the things people are willing to do just for a good photograph. But yeah, it is what it is. But that's not what we're gonna do. Obviously, you got a lot
No,
of
of course not.
safaris planned
No.
for your trips, and in many different formats as well, of course. So I think, I mean, I'm pretty much done with my questions for now. But if you would like to share a bit more about your upcoming expeditions to India, why don't we do that now?
So we're actually planning two trips to India early next year, in 2026. So first of all, we want to go to Beira, where we like to find leopards. The landscape of Beira is really amazing. You get like huge rock formations, and you get leopards laying on those rocks, which is unique because usually you see a leopard like somewhere hidden in a tree. But here in Beira, you get a leopard just open view, no distracting branches. Really see those beautiful cats in a really different environment. On the other side, we have a conflict with shepherds and leopards, or no conflict between them. And this is really interesting. How can they live together in one area without, being a trouble for the leopards? Because usually in many other places of the world. Big cats get hunted by shepherds, by farmers because of issues with the livestock. And in bear is completely the different way, is completely the opposite. And that's really interesting to experience that. The other trip will lead us to Satpura National Park, which is a beautiful national park in India where we find sloth bears primarily, which are really unique because those bears are so different from other bears. They're like a bit, clumsy, and the mothers carry the little bears on the back, and they are around in Satpura a lot, and it's actually the best place where you can see them. But of course, Satpura is also a good place to see tigers, and of course, if you go to India, you want to see a tiger, right? So Satpura covers both of that. And then last but not least, Satpura offers you a really calm safari experience. There's not many crowded jeeps around you. You're almost alone with the animal, and that's, it gives you first more options for your photography because you can move around. You're not like stuck between 25 jeeps and you cannot move, as in other parks in India or in Africa. And here you can really be alone with the animal, and that's unique. On the other side, what you can do in Satpura is you can experience the park not only by car, you can also walk and go by boat. And this gives you a completely different perspective, right? When you walk there, you're on eye level with the animal. You can have a look on the smaller animals there. It's not only about the big ones, but there is a lot of reptiles, insects. You can do a lot of macro stuff and find snakes and all of that. But there's also a chance to see bigger animals, at least find tracks from them and approach them by foot, and that's unique. And then there's also a big river in Satpura that you can go by boat and see wildlife over there by boat, and that makes a big, it's not just sitting in a car all day. You get a full experience of the habitat of the national park, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Sounds super exciting. I know I'm saying this after everything you're saying, but you're getting me excited for the trip, and I wish I could join you for this trip. But that's I think whoever does come will have a very, very immersive experience. So that's fantastic. And of course, led by you. But that's all the questions I had for you today, Julius. And it was so lovely having you. And thank you for taking the time and being here with us.
Thank you
And
so much.
most importantly, we're looking forward to seeing you very, very soon in India. And to everyone watching this video, you don't want to miss out on this trip. So for more information, definitely check out all our links, and obviously connecting you with Julius for a very, very immersive exploration. Thank you so much.
Looking forward. Thank you so much, and speak to you soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.